Hey everybody, Derek Simon with Database Betting with some statistics you have to have before you bet the Breeders' Cup this year. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. I thought we'd start off with some basic statistics. These are from 1997 to 2024. And if you look at all BC races, so we bet every horse in every race, about an 8.7% win rate. I don't think the win rates are the real prominent factor here, but I wanted to show them to you anyway. We'll obviously get to ROI a little bit later. But you notice that when the horse is a sole morning line favorite, they actually win a fair amount of the time, about 28%. That's less than the national average for all races over the course of the year. But of course, you have bigger fields in the Breeders' Cup. So we went through this one. You can see the different ones, and I'll talk a little bit about these. I'll show some of my reports for some of the proprietary stuff like the ESR. That's an early speed ration, and I'll explain what that is when we get to the report section. Here is the win ROI by category. And again, you'll see for all BC races, it's about minus 10%. That is better than betting races on the whole because, of course, you get more long shots in the Breeders' Cup. They're more highly contested races. And so just betting every horse in every race, you don't lose as much as you would if you bet every horse in every race just on a Tuesday at Aqueduct. But you'll notice here that when horses are 15 to 1 or greater in their last race, you actually have a positive ROI. You're going to see this a lot in the Breeders' Cup. If you remember from the first slide, I'll try to show you guys that again. That had one of the lowest win rates. And of course, that's always the case, or not always, but typically the case because you're looking for things that the public isn't going to bet. Obviously, when you're facing the best horses in the world, having bet a long shot in your last race is probably not a great factor in terms of winning. But when these horses do win, they tend to pay a ton. So that is the only positive one there. I got cats all around me. So anyway, you notice here, best last race ESR. You saw that in the last slide, a pretty decent winning percentage, and they also show a profit. That's interesting because that's really early speed energy. And it just goes to show that universal bias, as William Curran called it, having the ability to contend early is especially important when you're in a race like the Breeders' Cup where you have the best horses getting good positioning, getting a good trip. Obviously, this is going to vary depending on the kind of race. It's an extremely important factor in the Breeders' Cup Classic and might not be as big of a factor in the Breeders' Cup Turf. So remember, these are just generic stats. I just didn't have time to break them down. Let's look at the ROI here. And here's where, actually, this is the win percentage category again. Confirmed front runner. That's basically a need the lead type, or at least based on its last races, it's been in front. These horses, just like confirmed closers, are not the kind of horses you typically want to bet in the Breeders' Cup and the Kentucky Derby in any big race because these big races require that you be somewhat adaptable. And being confirmed in any category is typically not a great sign. You'll notice they win a decent percentage of the time. They win more than just betting horses on the whole. But you'll see in a second the ROI is not great. And I broke it down to front runner not confirmed, mid to front running style, rear to back, or mid to back running style, and then the closers. Check this out. Met speed par in last race. Now, this is one of the few exceptions when I talk about a higher win rate and a lower ROI because everybody knows about it. Believe it or not, when you meet the speed par in your last race, and remember for the foreign horses, we don't have speed figures, so there's no way that they can. So if you take those races out, that is an incredibly, incredibly important factor. Also, the median speed figure meeting par is very, very important. And you see those ROIs right now. You see the confirmed front runner, about a minus 22% ROI somewhere in there. So definitely less than the baseline. Front runners, about a 10% positive ROI. And then you see as you go down here, you have the confirmed category here and the confirmed category with closers. Look how bad those ROIs are. Everything else is decent. I talked about Met Par in last race. You notice a positive ROI, a little less than 10%. And the median speed figure meeting par, also a positive ROI. So that is really a big fact. And you hear people all the time talk about how speed isn't important. The same thing is true in the Kentucky Derby. When you can meet the par, it is important. And if you can get decent odds, then it becomes a profitable betting angle. Again, we're going back to win percentage by category. Here, the last race, greater than or equal to 60 days old. that just doesn't have much impact. Believe it or not, it's positive. The ROI is positive when it's greater than or equal to 90 days. Now, obviously, you get smaller sample sizes, you get some big prices in there, but I just would not be looking at the last day as a big factor in the Breeders' Cup races. Dropped more than 5 pounds in their assigned weight today as opposed to their last race. Check this out, about a 12% win rate. And I will tell you that what this really reflects is the European contingent or the foreign contingent. Those horses tend to carry more weight. And so when they're entered in these races, they're usually coming out of superior races. Okay. Oh my God. I started doing these videos and I just don't care if there's interruptions anymore, but this is a snippet of my life. So you notice that when the weight drops, that they do very, very well. Again, that typically is the European horses. Not only are they coming out of superior races in some cases, but usually they're dropping weight. Top RRR plus last race, same general surface. Now, the RRR is the race regression rating. That is one of my own proprietary ratings. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then you have to have raced over the same general surface. And by that, I mean dirt and synthetic, same thing, and then turf. So you can't go dirt to synthetic to turf or turf to dirt or synthetic. But dirt and synthetic are considered pretty much the same thing in terms of a general category. Then the top RRR greater than or equal to 0%. That's always been a big factor for that particular rating. It's basically profitable on all races. But you notice here, it makes a pretty big difference in terms of the ROI, almost 60%. So a big, big factor. We'll talk about some of those horses. And then the lowest race regression rating, fair odds, same surface, and that should be greater than or equal to 5-1 projected odds. Greater than or equal to 5-1 on the toe board is fine too. Let's go to the next slide. That was the last slide, actually. So now let's take a look at the reports, and we'll get even a better idea as to what is going on here. I got to get this out of here. Let's go right here. That's not it. Right here. All right, so this is the race regression report. And I'm showing you guys this. I was going to make these available. The problem is YouTube will not link to any kind of gambling site, I guess, unless it's FanDuel and it's NBA betting. That seems to be okay. But I can't link this in the YouTube video. So I thought I would just show you guys the reports because really what's important is those proprietary ratings. So if you notice in the first Breeders' Cup race today, this is the fourth race, and Hope Road, the dark yellow highlight means that it's a positive race regression rating. So here you have the top race regression rating. It's positive. We talked about how important that is. Check this out too. Last par speed figure over 100, that means met the par. Overall speed met the par. Then you see the pace figures here. A quick note on why this confirmed style could be a bad thing. Now, it's not as bad, believe it or not, with Hull and Ice, but that's what the asterisk means, is that it's a confirmed front runner. And if the horse is a confirmed front runner, you're going to see this in some later races, and then doesn't have the top median ESR or even the last race ESR, those are the horses that are really going to be up against it because it means that they need the lead and they might not, or they typically haven't expended the energy to get the lead in today's race. And so it can be a real negative. For Hull and Ice, it's very likely that he will get the lead. There's some more speed on the outside, but pretty decent overall. Still, Hope Road, obviously, the value play in there. Also, a great last workout. That's another positive. 100% workout. That's an excellent workout. Typically going to see that with Bob Baffert, too. So we go on to the next race here, and the top race regression rating in this race, and also the best fair odds, is She's Qualities, 20-1 on the morning line. We go to this next race here. This is the sixth race, and I can't hardly see these names. Ben Tornado, I think is the name. And this horse is also a positive race regression rating. Not much in the way of value here. These would be projected odds of less than the 5-1 that we talked about earlier. Now, these next two races are interesting in that you'll see some grades next to a couple of horses, a C for Nitrogen and a B for Rebels Romance. Those are picks basically that have shown a profit overall. And I grade them on an A to D scale. Obviously, A is the best, B second best, so forth and so on. And so Nitrogen, a C rating. This is a horse that I would definitely bet just because this is a horse that does show historical factors that have turned a profit in the past. You'll notice too this green area here. That's the form cycle. I may have talked about this in the past. I don't know if I have, but I did a bunch of studies on form cycles and came up with some winning form cycles and also some negative form cycles. You'll see those in red. But the green form cycle obviously is something that you like to see. I think Nitrogen 4-1. This horse I think was third last year in the Breeders' Cup at 36-1. Clearly lower odds this year, likely to be lower odds this year, and a pretty good chance to win. Rebels Romance hits a lot of different angles. In fact, I'll show you guys a consensus chart in a bit. And yes, a confirmed front runner, not a lot of speed, but this horse is fairly tactical too. You notice a good form cycle. Odds are a problem, but good speed. A lot of things to like with this horse. I don't look at these horses as locks, especially in a race like the Breeders' Cup. And the other thing I'll tell you guys, because I didn't get a chance in the charts to show this, but if you look at the place and the show ROIs, you'll see a lot of positive figures there, which you normally wouldn't see if you were just betting some race. Because in these kinds of races, Kentucky Derby, these big events, you get a lot of people betting. And so, where you would normally see a greater breakdown between place and show, to give an example, if a horse has 50% of the win pool, it should have about 50% of the place pool, 50% of the show pool. That's not always going to be the case in these big events. In fact, Dr. Williams Ziemba had done a study on the profits that are available in some of these other pools based on looking at those percentages. And he used one of the Breeders' Cups as an example of that. I forget the name of the horse, but he and his buddies went out there and they found this horse and just loaded on it to place. It placed, paid pretty well. You see that a lot of the Breeders' Cup. So don't be afraid to take a favorite and bet it to place or show in the Breeders' Cup. And I would never recommend show betting any other time other than Breeders' Cup, potentially Derby, those kinds of events. So let's go on to the next race. And this, in fact, is the Breeders' Cup Classic. And the top play here is Forever Young, at least in terms of the race regression rating. I haven't looked at these races real closely, so I can't tell you much beyond that. I just wanted to get some stuff out there for you guys. You notice it does have the front running style. I like that. That's the big issue for Sierra Leone. Excuse me, where's Sierra Leone? Right there. But Sierra Leone won last year, so that's just one of the things you'll see in the Breeders' Cup Classic is typically there's going to be a fair amount of speed signed up. In the 10th race, the Lion in Winter, that looks like it could be a decent value play. Top race regression rating coming in from Ascot, positive form cycle, of course, Aidan O'Brien, and a decent morning line odds. So that looks like a potential play there. Then in the 11th race, we have, I'm trying to figure out who's the top one. That would be Citizen Bull. I don't know. I don't know about that, but Citizen Bull does have the top rating. This is a horse that's a confirmed front runner, you'll notice, and doesn't have the best median ESR, does not have the best last ESR. The figures in green means they met the par. And then if it's bold, it means it's the best single rating. So you can kind of see that. I talked about the top ESR, so you can see that in some of these other races. Fierceness, for example, in the Breeders' Cup Classic has the best last race ESR. And I showed the stats on that and how effective it was. Also a great speed figure. So fierceness would definitely be a factor in there. Because those kinds of those kinds of horses just win the Breeders' Cup Classic. The horses that have front speed and speed in general. It's actually a pretty formful race for the most part. So just to finish out here, we'll go on to the last race of the day. I think this is the Filly and Mare Turf, or maybe the Turf. I'm not sure which. I didn't check it. But we've got in this race, it's going to be She Feels Pretty has got the top overall race regression rating. But again, you'll notice here, it's highlighted in a light yellow. That means it's not a positive rating. So the positive ratings, the Lion in Winter, Rebels Romance, Ben Tornado, and Hope Road. So I hope this helps a little bit. Obviously, these are just things to consider. Still do your regular handicapping, but maybe look at those stats, and if it helps you, eliminate a play or add another horse that you weren't thinking about for some of your exactas, trifectas, and supers, go about it that way. I hope you guys all have a great day of racing. I won't be playing a lot, but I will be playing today. So good luck to everybody and take care.